always speak in groups of entrepreneurs and I feel at home. Tonight, I feel very intimidated. I've never spoken to a group of entrepreneurs who are all Jewish and all went to yeshiva. So I'm starting at a disadvantage. You can start with that.
So one of the themes of the evening I've heard is mentorship. And Norm is my mentor for many, many years. He's also the mentor to several of you in this room. And his door is open. We share an office in Williamsburg, and his door has always been open to business owners and entrepreneurs who have questions. So that's an offer for anyone here if you want to spend time with Norm. So the first thing we ask is, well, how does somebody become a mentor? In other words, what has he done that entitles him or that is deserving of him to get something like a mentor title? Why would we take time to spend time with him, share ideas with him, get to know him? So I'll brag a little bit on his behalf. So I've known Norm for more than 10 years now. And he has one of those storybook endings that a lot of us are looking for in our business lives. He has sold 2 businesses, both based in the Williamsburg area, in the last 10 years, each one for 9 figures. So think about that number for a moment. And that's one of the ways we know someone's been really successful as a business owner. It's just one of the ways. And then there are others of us who are on our journey right now. And so where we may not think about that kind of an exit, we might say, gee, it would just be great to get my first client, or it would be great to hit $1 million, it would be great to hit 10 million, it would be great to find a great management team to help me. We all have our big goals that we're headed for. But one of the reasons why it's worth asking Norm a little bit about his journey is because of some of those hallmark successes. But let's start back at the beginning, because you're a Brooklyn boy from the beginning. And how did you get to the point where you were getting into entrepreneurship?
So I tell the story. I had a lot of education. I went to undergrad school. I was an accountant. And then I went to Brooklyn Law School, where I was a lawyer, and I worked for a lawyer. But my dad was a businessman. And most of the things I learned was from my dad. He died as a young man when I was in school. And so I had a yearning that I really didn't want to be a lawyer. The reason I went to law school is it was during the Vietnam War, and I really didn't want to run to Canada or avoid the draft. Eventually, I ended up in the Army anyway, but that's a different story. And so I was practicing law, not really happy doing that. And one day, I did a real estate closing. So how many real estate people are in there? So, if you have a 12-year-old son, he could probably do a real estate closing. And it's a really simple thing to do, And today, title companies in most of the other states, other than New York, just do the closing themselves. Lawyers don't even get involved. And I went to this closing, and as I went to this closing, a guy pulls up next to me in a Cadillac. In those days, the Cadillac was the Jewish Rolls Royce. And he got out, and he was wearing a beautiful, beautiful suit, and he had a cigar in his pocket. I'm a cigar smoker. And I thought it was a really good cigar. And we go into the closing, and he didn't know what he was doing. And so I asked him to walk outside, and I said, "You don't do any real estate?" He says, "No, I'm a criminal lawyer. But my niece told me she wanted me and insisted on doing it. I have no idea what I'm doing." I said, "Well, you trust me, and I'll take care of the whole closing. And every time you do something wrong, I'll kick you." He walked out black and blue, but we did the closing. And after the closing, everybody left. I was left there myself. And he says, "Here's my card. If I could ever do anything for you, just let me know." I took his card. I gave it back to him, and I said, "Yes, sir. You can do something for me right now." And he says, "What's that?" I said, "I want to know how much money you earned last year." I was just out of law school, and I was earning $75 a week, working lots of hours, And he looked at me, "That's kind of personal." I said, "Well, I won't tell the IRS, but I'd like to know. And then we'll be even." And he said to me, "Last year I made $50,000. I got up and I shook his hand. I said, "Sir, you just changed my life. And we're even." And I went back to the law firm, and I said, "I quit." And they said, "Well, why'd you quit?" I said, "Well, if I told you, you wouldn't understand." And what it was is, if this guy could earn $50,000 a year, my goal was to earn 25. This was a simple thing. And I went home to my mother, and I said, "Mom," I lived with my mother at the time, and I said, "Mom, I just quit the firm." She said, "No, you didn't." She said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I'm going to become a businessman." And in those days, businessmen were not well thought of. The word was, my dad was a custom peddler. How many in the room know what a custom peddler is? Okay, the older people, any of you young guys know what it is? It's a person who sold door to door on credit. sold everything door to door in credit. And really, all the business things that I learned wasn't from school, but it was from my father. And she looked at me and she says, "You can't do that. Only people who can't do anything else become business people." You know, and the bad part about it was anytime we went to a social engagement, my mother said, "This is my son, the lawyer." I said, "No, Mom, I'm a business person." She said, "No, you're not. You're a lawyer." You know how mothers are, right? And then Inc. magazine came along. And what happened with Inc. magazine, they made the word entrepreneur a special word. And people started using that word all over. And entrepreneurs and businessmen became up here, and I don't have to tell you where lawyers ended up, right? Do we have any in the room, by the way? Oh, good. Okay. None of them will admit that. So we used to go to social functions, and my mother used to say, because she couldn't pronounce the word, she would say, "This is my son. He's an entrepreneur." You know? I said, "No, I'm a lawyer." She said, "No, you're not. Never use that again." So that's how I really started my entrepreneurial career from that.
And so you're fortunate tonight to be accompanied by your lovely bride of 50 years, Elaine Brodsky. And one of my favorite stories is, of course, Elaine married a nice Jewish boy, a lawyer, and somehow ended up with somebody who ended up in a very different profession. What was that, when that time you came home in blue coveralls and you were,
So,
different place?
how many people started a business that worked in a similar business? Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, that's not unusual. Most people start a business, they work in the business, they learn everything, they think they can do it better, and they go out on their own, okay? That's it. So I hadn't worked in any businesses, so I said, I want to learn a business. So what I did is I went out and got jobs in the businesses that I thought I wanted to go in. The first one was a car wash. And by the way, I'll just give you a hint for those of you who've never worked in a car wash before. The best job is vacuuming the taxis in the back. There's a lot of loose change that you get in the back. And I went to work every day for 2 years working in a car wash. I eventually became the CEO of a car wash. But I used to wear a jumpsuit and it said Super Suds on the back. You remember that, honey? And she says, "Do me a favor, change in the car before you walk in the house." And then from there, I went to work for another business, a delivery business, and I loved the business. I became CEO of that delivery business, and I went out and started a delivery business. Now, where do you think you learn the most important lessons in life? Anybody want to take a stab at it? Raise your hand.
Failure.
Who said that? Oh, you've been reading my books, you see. Have you? Who said failure? Okay, who's in the back here? So we're going to give you a little gift. It's one of my books that 17 languages and still a good seller. Who said it? Here you go. Okay. Failure. So the first business I built that I went into, I built from zero to $120 million in 8 years. On the Inc. 500 list, the 46th fastest growing company in America. And over the next 6 months, I took it from $120 million to zero. Who laughed? It wasn't funny then, and it still hurts now. How many people in this room have failed at something? You haven't failed at anything yet, sir? Right? Okay, raise your hand. We all fail. And the object of failing is learn from your failures. This company went from $100 million, $120 million to zero. And I could have blamed it on a few things. 1987, the stock market crashed. One of the companies I was running at that time went a $40 million company, only serviced financial printers. Financial printers stopped existing that day that the stock market crashed. That company went from 40 million to zero. Could have blamed it on that. For those of you who were around then, the fax machine was just coming into being. I had delivery companies in 18 states. And there was the similar number of delivery businesses, but there were less envelopes and less packages because fax came into being. But what I did is I said every time we have a failure, any one of us have a failure, somehow we contributed to that failure, right? And if we can find out what it is, we can fix that. If we don't do that and we don't look at our failures and try to change from that, We're destined to repeat them over and over again. I call it the Groundhog's Day syndrome, for those of you who've seen the film with Bill Murray, right? So what I found was I took the money from one company that was really good, that could have existed after the stock market crashed, and used it to fund the other companies. And that was my mistake in that company. And because I sat down and I analyzed that, from that time forward, anytime I wanted to open up a new company or buy a new company, it was from outside sources, money that I had saved, banks, whatever it was, but not from the golden goose. So we can learn from our failures. That's a long answer to your question.
So one of the things I love about your story is when we first met, I was actually working on a book about sort of the secrets of entrepreneurs, and I asked him a question I'd been going around the country and asking people was, what is it that you're especially good at? And so before you answer, Norm, I would just like each of you to think about that thing that you're especially good at that has to do with how you make money or how your business runs, because you can build empires around the thing you're especially good at. And it was a question I asked him, and I'm not sure anyone had ever asked him that question before, and a friendship came out of that question. But tell us a bit about your answer and why it was so important.
So how many people think in this room they're good at 5 or more things? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Okay. How many people think you're 3 or more things you're good at? How many people think they're good at nothing? You're kidding, right? Okay. How many people think they're only good at one thing? Okay. So my answer to Lewis is, I'm really only good at one thing. And he looked at me inquisitively and he said, what is that? I said, well, I see the future of things. So I'm good at that. And that's a really good thing to be good at, as I've learned in building my companies.
Yeah, so out of that, so, that sounds like an oddball answer, and what does that mean? Does that mean he's a mystic? No, it means that the way we've formulated over the years is that he looks at things differently than other people. And why is that valuable? So I've had the great fortune of sitting next to him when a lot of entrepreneurs have come in with a business problem or an idea, whatever it was, and they laid it out. Maybe it took them 2 minutes, maybe 20, but at the end of it, they would say something like, what do you think? And he would start to answer it, and I noticed over the years that he just looks at things differently. And so I have come to value that greatly and tell other people, before you make a decision, before you have some big project you're about to undertake or write a check, go talk to a guy who looks at things really differently. And that's an incredibly valuable tool. Now for those of you who are familiar with Williamsburg as an area, one of the great businesses he built in there had to do, and it ended up being in the heart of the hot hipster part of Williamsburg. And part of the success of that business was that, Williamsburg came to be what it is today. And I'm not sure he knew that exactly, but he knew that there was something worth building there. And so I want to start to ask you guys to think of questions you want to ask a guy who looks at things differently. You can do that here and now, take some questions. And while we're getting ready for that, Norm, tell me a bit about, I know that there's a kind of a bright line in your business life where at late 40s, you found yourself essentially broke. And then you start to build chapter 2, we'll call it, chapter 3, maybe chapter 4. So, tell us a bit about what that line meant to you when you were in your 40s with a family and all your entrepreneurial efforts had come to nothing. And how did you look into yourself and move forward?
Well, the first thing, as I said before, is I took responsibility for what I did. So we all make mistakes, and I learned that in the thing. The second thing that I did, the best lesson I learned from that, I said, what could I do that's better, that would make my life better around me? And we have 2 children, Rabbi, not 10, but I was busy doing other things, I have to admit. But so we have 2 children, and they're 10 years apart. And my youngest daughter was 2 at the time that this happened. The other one was 12. And I sat down and I did introspection. And I don't know how many of you in this room do that, but I do that quite often after that instance. And I do it through today. What can I do to make everybody's life better and my life better? And what I noticed was that when my oldest daughter, was growing up, I missed her youth. I was busy working. I won't say that I'm workaholic. I love what I do, but I didn't take the time to be with her and spend with her. And I swore, going forward, I would spend time with this young new daughter that I had. I went on class trips with her. I was the only guy there on class trips. I spent all that time with her. Now, the difference, they both talk to me. We have a good relationship with both of them. But my youngest daughter, I would say a day doesn't go by when I don't speak to her, whether she'll call me or I'll call her, no matter where we both are in this world. So I built a lasting relationship. And I think what I've learned is what's important in life. You know, I love to do what I do. I run 5 businesses today. Some of them will be successful. A few will go broke. I'm in the middle of a few now. But the important part in life happens really quickly. And if we don't take the time out to attend to that, we're going to miss out on an awful lot. Having a business and growing a business gives you the maybe money to do certain things. But if I had a vote today, what's more important is the things around me. So they come first. And that didn't happen for a very long time for me.
Do we have any questions for Norm? And if
questions are rewards, yes, maybe. What would I do if I'm in the 20s right now? So that's a really good question. I have lots of young men and women who come to me and ask me that question all the time. The opportunities today are greater than they ever were before. So I'm not sure what business I would go into. I'd have to speak to you for an hour or so, and you can come up to my office anytime you want and meet with me. That I'll be glad to meet with you and discuss it. But those opportunities are great. I personally love working for myself, being the boss, being in charge, and using my mind to create things. I consider myself, after all these years, as an artist. I create businesses, and I build it around it, and I create jobs. So I'm really good at doing that. And so there's 2 bits of advice I give you. The first one is find something you love to do, if you can, if that's possible. You know? And the second thing, and more important to everybody in this room, is never, 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 never quit. No matter how tough things get, no matter how bad it gets, just keep going on. Even if you're leaving that business and it didn't work out, try another business. For everybody who's an entrepreneur, and most of you in the room today, I want to just tell you one thing. You can never get another job again. You have your own hours, you don't listen to anybody. Who's going to hire that? So it's real easy for the first time to make it successful, because if you're not, you're going to have to do it over and over again. So I hope that answered your question. Yes.
So Norm, here's a question. Careful. There you go. Don't want to take your head off.
That's why I don't have hard-covered books.
Norm, one of the business lessons that I've appreciated the most from you is the 3 things that you look for whenever you enter into or start a business. So you could share those with the audience. That'd be great.
So I have a rule that I now look back on everything I've done and what I do. So I have 3 criteria for starting a business. Anybody want to take a stab at what they are? No hands? Go ahead. He wants a hand? Revenue? That's good, but wrong. Yes. You had your hand up. You want to go to the bathroom? I mean, I don't. Go ahead. Rejection? No, that's a terrible answer. What? Is there a need? Okay, but that's not my thing. Go ahead. Can you scale it? Good, but not right. Anybody else? Yeah? Courage, confidence. Oh, good things too, but that's not what I think about. Go ahead. You enjoy it. Well, I'll think about that, but that isn't it. Go ahead. Determination you need, but that's not it. This is important to me. Okay, so you're all wrong, and since I'm running late, I'm going to give you that first answer, obviously. The business idea or concept has to be over 100 years old. Is that weird? Well, it's not so bad. How many people in this room started with a lot of money in their business? Raise your hand. Nobody. You did? We'll talk later. So when I started out in business, I had no money, right? So what's the hardest and most expensive business you can get into? Educating people about your service or your business, right? If you have to educate people about your business, it costs a ton of money. I never had that money. But if a business already exists and people know it, all you have to do is get the customer. You know, we were walking through Paris, my wife and I, one day, and there were 5 cashmere shops in a row. She says, hey, you know what? If I opened up a cashmere shop, it wouldn't be here. I said, you're wrong. This is exactly where to open up the cashmere shop. Everybody knows it's here. You don't have to pay to get the customers to come. They're going to walk to this district. The same thing with a business idea or concept. If it's 100 years old, people know what it is. You don't have to tell them. So I would never be a Bezos, a Jeff Bezos, when I got to drive everybody to the site. I would never have done that because I couldn't get the money to do it. So that's the first concept or business that I have to do. Every business I've ever gone into has been around for 100 years. Okay? First thing. Second thing. So now I got you on track. You may be able to get this. Yes, sir. Is it a growing industry? That's good, but wrong. Anybody else? Yes, sir. Solves a customer problem. Let me think about that. Wrong. Yes, sir. That's a good thing to have, but no. Anybody? Yeah, okay. That's really interesting. I'll have to think about that.
He gets a book for that.
Thank you, Captain Obvious. Anybody else? Go ahead. Will it be around in 100 years? I haven't thought about that. Wrong. That's not even close. Yes, sir. Finding a demographic. Okay, but I'm not sure I understand that. You went to too many years of yeshiva. Is it regulated? That's really good, but wrong. No, you guys coming up with good answers here, right? The industry has to be antiquated. Antiquated. So every business I've ever gone into, I've started with technology that existed then. Technological advances. The business that I sold in Williamsburg for $120 million, the first one, right? It was an archival retrieval and records management business, right? Everybody know what that is? You store paper records in a box, right? And so I'm the first one. I found out that there was an experiment. Today you get your package delivered and you sign a computer, handheld computer, right? I found out that was in beta testing. I went to Symbol and said, I want to use that for you. I'll be your guinea pig. I had that before everybody else. Sitting on the edge of technology that drives the business. That's what I did. So 100-year-old concept, technology, second. And the third and most important thing, and one of you really should get this. Very good, but no. The third thing in business. Can you sell a business? I never thought about that, but that's good. But no, that's not either. You want a book? No, you have to come up with the answer. How big is the market? No, not really. How big is the market? No, he's not in the same neighborhood. He's in Canarsie, you're in Crown Heights. There's no same neighborhood. Yes? No, somebody already said that, so you get a second no. Yes, ma'am.
Hire a good team.
Yeah, you have to do that in business, but that's not quite what it is yet. What separates you? Who said passion? That's good, and I want to tell a story about passion. So I'm going to hold this in a second. I'm going to tell a story about passion, and I think that, so I'm at a Jagger concert. How many like Mick Jagger as a singer? Some of you, okay. I'm there with my wife. This is about a year ago. We're standing up because you have to stand at a Stones concert, and I sit down. She says, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yes." By the way, there's 25,000 screaming kids, so I didn't in the thing. I said, "Yes." And she says, "What's wrong?" I said, "I'll tell you after the concert. I just found out what my life was all about." You're at a Stones concert. You just found out what your life's about. I said, can't you wait till we finish here? So we finished, and afterwards she said to me, what is that all about? I said, see Jag on stage? She said, yeah. I said, do you think he needs the money to do this? She says, no, not really. I said, he's the exact age as I am. We're born a month apart. Why does he do it? And she says, I don't know, but I know you're going to tell me. I said, yeah, I'm going to tell you. He says, because he has passion for what he does. And I have passion for what I do. And if any one of you can find the passion that you have for the business that you have or the life that you had, you're really a lucky person. Because that's going to drive you. It's going to make you happy. Who said the word passion? Yes, sir. We'll get you a buck. Okay. The third and last thing, because I understand we're running late, because I could talk all night. Who is it? Come on. Okay. Yes, sir. Oh, finding a niche. That's it. What's a niche? No, not really. Good. What is it? Unique doesn't have to necessarily be selling. Something that's unique within your business that gets you ahead of everybody else. Niches only last for a short period of time. But if you can find, or I can find a niche within that business, that's the third thing that I do. Okay? So, who's that? Who said niche? No, we got him. Here we go. Okay, yeah, I've been practicing.
Right,
I only lost 2 audience members.
So I know that there's a next piece to this program here. So before he goes too far, let me just say, mentorship is a big part of our lives. It's a big part of this community's life. Everything you heard from Rabbi Wordy today. I'm really proud of my friend who went to a school in New Jersey, a tiny little college, a long time ago, and today, just recently, they named the business college after him. It's called the Brodsky College of Business. It's Rider University, for those of you who are interested. So, and I'll just share with you in private conversations, he's always said that is in fact the capstone of his career. It's not the big sales, it's not the accolades, it's the fact that he can go back to the school he started at, and that his name is on the building now, and his name is the school now. So just very proud of him for that. Yeah. And so for those of you who want to know more about this, again, his offer to come spend time with him is open, and Joe Applebaum can find us, as well as we have a program that we're running now for folks just like you, which is called Moonshots and Moneymakers. And the idea is we're headed to Oxford University, and we're spending time with moneymakers, which are businesses like yours, businesses that make money, that sit on the edge of technology, and are working with the moonshots of the world, the academically funded innovation. So for those of you who want to learn more about that, please just let us know. And Norm, thanks for sharing your wisdom tonight, and thank
you very much. Great audience.